Although God is everywhere, certain places remind us of His presence and encourage us to live holy lives before Him. During the final section of the book of Ezekiel, there is a special focus on the coming restored temple. These visionary narratives show God's plans for His land and people. Here we can see Ezekiel's priestly concerns and knowledge come into play. The temple was described in architectural terms in the previous chapters, and as such, it is empty and lifeless. Now, the glory of God came to the temple, and as a result, the temple was full of life. Ezekiel then begins talking about what that means for those who serve and worship in the temple. Since the glory of God is now present in the temple, its worshippers must be holy. It must not continue to be business as usual. As a priest, Ezekiel stressed the holiness that God requires and the putting away of all things that would defile the temple, which brings us to our key verse for today, which reads, "Then the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner courtyard, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple." Ezekiel chapter 43, verse 5. Since Ezekiel witnessed the glory departing, it was altogether fitting he is given a preview of its return. For the Old Testament believers, the glory of the Lord was a tangible reality that wasn't witnessed often, but whenever it appeared, it was unforgettable and beyond description. Numerous scriptures attempt to capture it, such as Psalm 24, which seems appropriate for Ezekiel's vision. "Lift up your heads, O you gates, and lift them up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in." Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. The mercy seat on the Ark of the Covenant represented the glory, and so this can indicate the entrance of the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. In another example, Exodus 40, verse 34 records, "Then the cloud covered the tabernacle, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. The glory filled the tent of the meeting, so much that Moses could no longer enter the tabernacle." For New Testament believers, God's glory is usually an intangible concept. Still, we are not without examples of New Testament references to His tangible glory, such as in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3, which records that Jesus, who being the brightness of His glory and the express image of His person, and John chapter 1, verse 14 states, "And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory, and the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth." Then there is the Mount of Transfiguration, where Jesus is transfigured, revealing the glory of God. Ezekiel hears God from within the Holy of Holies. God dwells in heaven, and earth cannot contain Him. Still, He chooses to dwell on the earth. The word dwell in Hebrew is shakan, which means reside, inhabit, or rest. And when God spoke to His people, one of the ways He did so was through the cloud. This is how the people knew God was with them. The cloud also appeared to Moses on Mount Sinai and filled the tabernacle in the wilderness when it was finished. It also filled Solomon's temple on the day of its dedication. Some theologians connect this dwelling or settling of the divine presence with the New Testament use of the Greek parousia, which means presence or coming. God reminds Ezekiel why His presence had departed from His people, because of their cumulative and collective sins and worshiping of other gods. The prophet's message is continued even beyond the time of the prophets and even into our current day and age. The message of the prophets has taken similar forms throughout the history of faith, but the theme barely varies. Turn from the death of evil and turn to the life of God. Put sin out of your heart and purify your temple, so God may dwell with you. Just as Jesus came not to destroy the law and the prophets, but to fulfill them, Ezekiel promised that God would restore the blessings associated with Him originally through Moses, both His presence and worship of Him. So here's our lesson. Many today, we're in self-imposed exile, imprisoned by our own bondage, and held in bondage by our addictions and profane habits. Not so different from the people of Ezekiel's time, we desperately need the hope of God's glory entering our temples and evicting our darkness and sin. And by receiving Him, we experience the sacred place of God's glorious presence within our hearts. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to iLights. Heavenly Father, fill our hearts with what we truly desire for who we truly seek.